For 8:23, let's keep it going here and jump into the KUAM News Zoom room on the link, where Education Superintendent John Fernandez standing by. Good morning, John.
Day. Good morning, Chris and Sabrina. How are you doing?
We're doing okay. I mean, glad to get you on, and I guess we'll just start at the beginning, John. What can you tell us about this? I want to say it's a rash of positives. So we have Southern High,
FB, Inarahan Elementary.
Right.
T-Gen High School.
T-Gen High. That's four,
Sanchez.
right? Four.
Right. And then there was it Carbolito, John?
Yeah, we had, of course, there's a couple earlier associated
Right.
with
Yeah.
the rapid.
But just recently, yeah.
Yeah, so since we began the school year, we've been, closely monitoring the situation at the schools. And so, I think as we said before, with the rise in positives over the last 2 weeks, I think everybody was, getting concerned. And that's why we're at this point where face-to-face classes are delayed. And that's great that they are, because it really, this increase happening at the same time your kids are at school, that's definitely something that would have been, a lot more concerning, a lot more, I'm sure, comments coming in from everybody just worried.
Yeah.
And, there's always going to be that extra level of anxiety, at this stage of COVID-19, just really, ravaging everything that's been going on on this island. But for us, we've been paying attention to those numbers. We've been in close contact with public health just to kind of really understand what's going on. But for sure, as we started to see the increases in the community, we figured that it, at some point it's going to hit our schools, even if it's just a matter of trying to, get the current, wave. I don't know if they call it a surge. We're trying to get that under control with PCOR 1. I mean, 46, cases in a day, or, in a reporting period. Obviously, it doesn't take too long before one of our 2,000, teachers or, employees are going to be in that contact tracing, pathway. So
Right.
we were anticipating, we've been prepared to address it. But what's happening now is as we get employees reporting, or public health reporting, positive cases, we go right away to do the contact tracing, the cleaning at the schools, and ensure that we're just in close touch to determine, the scope and breadth of the situation. I know there are a lot of employees and stakeholders really, asking about, when do we, are we going to close schools? Or, how is that going to happen? And I just want the public to know that we are working through, I wouldn't say a framework, but we are working through a process to determine, how to approach that decision. I just shared with the Lieutenant Governor and the doctors team, what they're doing in California and the thresholds they're using to determine closure of schools, as well as closures of whole school districts, because I know that's a question that's out there. So we're looking at maybe putting out some interim guidance, soon, that'll just give our stakeholders, the information as to how we're thinking through those decisions. I think in California, they use a 5% threshold at the school level. If it ever gets to that level, the whole school closes down. And if you have several schools closed down, I believe it's 25% of your schools closed down, the entire district, closes down. So I floated that to the doctors group, because of course we're Guam, we might want to adapt that, to our community. So I'm not sure if that'll be the final, kind of threshold, but that's something we want to put in place soon, because, we're getting a lot of those questions as well.
Right, John, and I want to give you the floor and address the teachers and the staff who, I mean, I've heard from a bunch of, the last couple of days, the anxiety level of knowing that we're getting these positive at these schools because the staff is returning to work. So, I mean, a very real conversation, teacher to teacher. Why are we still showing up when the risk is so great?
Right. So, so first of all, let me clarify at least what I know. These cases that are in our schools are not coming from our schools; they are coming from community spread. So I think that's the issue. It's that the whole rise in positives that have happened over the last 2 weeks. Really have happened for a number of reasons. And I think for most of us, kind of getting a little bit more relaxed about being with family and so forth. But I think the PCOR 1 situation kind of is putting us back to square one, having to really ensure that we practice safety, when we're around other people. But again, having said that, we are monitoring to determine any evidence or any clue that this is actually a spread from within any schools. But right now, it's coming from contact tracing or incidents that seem to be happening outside of school. And we are trying to be conservative with the contacts, making sure that they aren't reporting to school, that they have an opportunity to go get tested. But again, this is a fluid situation. I am, again, working to really establish this week, hopefully today, at least some interim parameters so that when we reach and hit a certain level, we just close down and move on from there, try to be as safe as possible. But right now, just to be clear, right now, teachers and staff are reporting back to work. And really, it's the first week of school, so we really wanted to make sure that, there is an exemption for distance learning. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of got ourselves organized. There is a principals meeting happening in about 30 minutes. We did leave it to the discretion of the principals as well as the division heads to be able to make decisions about telework. Right. So we are allowing that to occur. Right now, it's at the principal level, and the conversation today is really encouraging our principals to really take that seriously as a matter of safety and as a matter of making these adjustments to the situation. But right. I think at least for the first couple of days, the issue was let's get situated with organized with our classes, right.
Distribution, and then we can move to figure out flexible schedules and so forth. So
Right.
That's something that we're still working through.
Are you saying that you're looking at remote teaching? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, we call it telework, but telework would include, being able to do your, your job as a teacher
Right.
from
Remotely,
your home.
right.
Yeah.
responsibility.
Okay.
So John,
Yeah,
I mean,
so
just
telework- Yeah, it really depends on making sure that we can ensure that the job is being done, right? That the work is being accomplished, and where you do it, we need to think about being more flexible about that.
Well, distance learning, it's delayed for 2 weeks, but every time there's a positive case, it's usually, it starts, the 2 week clock
the
starts all
face-to-face,
over.
right? Yeah.
Right. So are you guys looking at extending the face-to-face prohibition even longer than the 2 weeks
And
already
if so,
in
when
place?
would we hear that?
So I'm not the expert, but I have, I did ask to meet with the doctors this week again, because you're absolutely right. Actually, when we put this 2 week delay in place, we instructed our administrators to plan for a longer period in the event that this goes longer. So don't just put plans in place to okay, let's just, push it off for 2 weeks and then we'll get started. Think about this as potentially going longer than that because of exactly what you said. If the numbers don't change by midweek, what's the likelihood we're going to be able to, if the numbers don't change by the end of by this weekend, how likely is it that we're going to, shift back to a more relaxed position? And so we are definitely considering, and I think it's likely that it might go longer than the 2 weeks. So we just need to touch base with our doctors and get a good read on what's going on.
I guess, John, I know that you're with the principals meeting trying to retool, but since we're not doing the face-to-face, and God, this is maybe an oversimplification of a question, but do teachers really need to be in the classroom if there aren't any students? Or was it like you said, let's just get everyone in, see where we're at, get this thing rolling?
Yeah, that's more the spirit of it. Let's just get everybody in so we can facilitate communication, coordination, and collaboration, to get the job done and make sure we're organized, especially having had to, change the face-to-face learning to some other version of home learning.
Right.
So a lot of schedules were changing and so forth. So the instruction is let's get organized and prepare ourselves to deliver instruction. But at the same time, once we get organized, I've told the administrators that they have the discretion to grant that, because I know they're getting requests,
Right.
And they have to juggle those requests and figure out how to make it work. But we're going to talk to them again today and say, look, let's figure out how to make it work. Let's be reasonable about it. And the real key is to make sure that the work's getting done. And if you can do that at home, then there shouldn't be much of, we shouldn't have an issue with that in this environment. It's the same thing with the central office. It's the same approach.
Yes, the Monday and Tuesdays, there are a lot of people here at the office. But again, if we just take payroll, our payroll division, your job is to make sure you work through timesheets, you get people paid. If you do that at home, great. But if you don't get the work, if you don't get the work, then we're gonna have a challenge. So
Right.
it's just adapting that approach to the school level. And I want our teachers and staff to know that we haven't given a directive not to, to be able to work at home, but we are asking that the first week, get organized for, for the situation at hand. And then I'm asking the administrators to really give us the recommendations. And if they need more guidance, we'll provide more guidance. I think that's the other issue regarding being able to provide telework. So, so with that in mind, hopefully by the end of the week, there'll be more. I know principals are working at it already to really figure that out and to address the concerns of their employees.
I know we're only like 3 days into distance learning. How has it been going? Have you received any concerns from parents or teachers?
Well, at the end of the first day, I was gonna say it was such a quiet day, but then I realized our phone system had gone down for for 3 hours.
Oh yeah, I bet you were like, oh, everybody's good, right on, high five from 6 feet.
All right, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same kind of first day. So like I think I told you guys, no bus complaints, no parent dropped off complaints, no traffic complaints. But what we did get was a lot of questions about things like, okay, my password doesn't work for my email. Can we get the updated passwords? Can we get an update on the schedules? When is the hard copy distribution being done? So a lot of logistical questions about the first week. And, what we did in order to support the schools is we set up that central office hotline, both the phone hotline, which again, that went down, but we did have the email hotline, and I'm watching that work. And I think it's been really good to have extra support for the schools and an extra place for people to call or to email. And what we do have is staff here at the central office who are relaying requests for support to the schools, tracking those requests, and then following up within 24 hours, the next day to make sure that those issues are resolved. And that seems to be working. And I'd like to continue that, especially this year where you're going to need you probably can expect a lot of parent, requests for technical support and other things. But I have to say, and I just had a conversation with one of the deputies this morning. Based on what we know, for these first few days, we did get a lot of good feedback from parents that have contacted me and commented on other things. Good feedback regarding the online, classes at the high school level, as well as at the elementary level. We are taking a look at our middle schools. We know our middle schools, a lot of them did have some work to do over the week to shift a lot of face-to-face back to home learning. So I know there were some schools that had a delay in getting information now. So we're checking in on them, today. But for the most part, I'm very excited about the online learning. My daughter, of course, and my son are both, experiencing that at home. And my daughter really enjoyed that first day. And I've seen her, when there was no class, really take the opportunity to take the work, do the work at home, get into a routine in terms of doing assignments. And my observation is that this is just like going to college. You get your classes, and then in between time, you have to do your reading, you have to do your assignments, and so forth. So I really think there's a lot of promise to it, and we're only going to get better with online. With the hard copies, the real focus there is determining how we're going to maintain, very robust communication with the families and the parents at home in order to provide support. So that's a topic of discussion that we're going to have with our teachers and with our administrators, these first couple of weeks. And then I have to say my biggest concern, like I shared with you early on, was that there were a lot of students who hadn't engaged and hadn't connected to the school system over the summer. And these are families that we had a lot of trouble connecting with through their phone numbers and emails that we had on file. So all the schools are tracking the numbers and their efforts to reach out to those students that are on our list. And I have to say, I think we're tracking about 3,000 students out there that we're still trying to track down. So, today we're going to be looking at, how we deploy the social workers and our student attendance officers and work with the mayors to start to narrow down, that list of families and kids out there that just haven't been able to be reached. So they're the ones that, when there's no face-to-face, they're the ones that we need to worry about. And so we're focused on, ramping up the outreach to see where they're at. So that's something that we can follow up on.
Well, where are we with providing the educational needs for the students with special needs?
So all of that. Okay, so that's a big question. In the event that this situation gets prolonged, so under a 2-week delay, obviously the work that happens with the families to determine how we can provide services through one of the home learning models, for the 2-week period. But the concern right now is looking at the potential extension of this, PCOR 1 situation. If face-to-face learning gets delayed longer, we're going to have to sit down with the families and figure out, how to provide services in that environment. So the 2 weeks wasn't the big concern. We anticipate that that's how it's going to be throughout the year, potentially school by school. But the fact that we've delayed face-to-face island-wide for 2 weeks and potentially longer, we're going to have to get back to the drawing board and work with our families to figure out alternatives. So that is another major concern should the situation extend.
All right, John, we're going to wrap this up. Was there anything else that you wanted to get out before we move on to our next guest?
No, I just want to thank all the families out there for their patience this first week. They don't see what's really going on behind the scenes and the work the teachers are doing to really make these amazing shifts from in-class instruction to these different models of learning. And like I said, we can only get better from here. I'm really excited because by the time we get through this situation, our teachers are going to have developed a much wider set of skills, especially using technology and using other modes of outreach and engagement with the families. So that's the end game. Whether or not it's COVID-19 or not, that's going to be a product of all the work that's going in today. But right now, as we make that transition, I'm really glad. For the most part, our families have been really patient, have been reaching out, and the biggest thing that we can do is communicate with our families and make sure that they understand what to expect as we go further into the school year. So we're happy to continue to talk to you guys and get the message out there so that our parents can have a way to ask questions. Again, if we could just put it out there, any questions and concerns, please feel free to call us at our hotline number 300-1536 or by email at info@gdoe.net. And we're happy to follow up on any issues, concerns that you might have at this point.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Thanks, John.
John.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Stay home after work. Okay, we'll see you. 8:42. Let's keep it going.